What's up, Warriors, and welcome to another episode of the Mental Health Movement podcast, Voice for the Voiceless. I am Court, of course, am your host, Chris. If you're listening to this, this is coming out in February, so I hope you guys all had a very safe holiday. I hope you had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Today's topic, we're actually going to be covering. I did a podcast similar to this a couple months ago, and unfortunately, it didn't really translate that well. It didn't really go over that well with a lot of the feedback that I got. So, today's special guest is he is a brother, he is a warrior. He is currently serving in the Army of the 82nd Airborne Division. We're going to be talking about men's mental health, male suicide, and of course, struggles that fathers go through with our today's court system. So please help me welcome Chad. Chad, how you doing, brother?
Hey, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Thank you so much for coming on today's podcast.
Thank you for having me, man. I'm a fan of yours. I'm a fan of
Yeah,
yours.
thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Awesome.
So before we dive into today's podcast, I just want to say thank you for your service. I think that needs to be said a lot more in today's world because for some reason there's that black cloud over military and police officers and stuff. So thank you so much for your service.
For sure, man. For sure. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the recognition.
Of course, man. So tell us a little about yourself. Tell us why you come on to today's podcast and a little bit of your story for our listeners.
Yeah, so I came onto the podcast because number one, I am a fan of yours. I have came on the podcast for a lot of reasons. One for men's mental health, something that I've experienced myself. I have been through court systems, child custody court systems that to be honest with you is really unforgiving. Um, I also lost a brother in 2005 due to suicide. Um, I've been through some stuff in my life, and that's more than that. But I don't want to get off the topic. But yeah, I've experienced a lot of things. I mentor a lot of not just my soldiers, but a lot of guys that are personal friends, and they come to me advice. And I wouldn't say I got it down, but I believe that I'm damn well versed in it. So
I feel like, every day's a learning curve, if we're dealing with mental health struggles. It's every day is a new lesson and every day is a new day to essentially start over and do better than you did yesterday.
for sure, for sure.
Before I lost my brother in 2021, his famous saying was defeat the me of yesterday.
Mm,
And I got that tattooed on me on his 2-year
awesome.
anniversary. And I just want to express my condolences to you as well for losing a brother. It's really hard to digest that. It's really hard to, interpret that loss. So, sorry for your loss, man.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate you for the admiration, man. I appreciate you for the empathy. I lost my brother, and I'm sorry for your loss too, man, as
Thank you.
well. I lost my brother in 2005, and I think I was about 15. No, about 14 years old. I turned 15. And my brother took his life in a hotel room, and he was a 26-year-old guy. Now I looked at myself. I'm past 26. I'm 35. Just turned 35 on December 20th. And as the last thing I told to my brother, we got into an argument. The last thing I told to him was I hated him, and I think about that constantly as they go by. So I really don't I watch what I say to people, especially the brothers. You can never get too mad at a person that you say you hate them. And but make a long story short, my brother was dead in the hotel room. Found by my mom, and my mom uh, walked in, put her head on his chest and stuff. But before that, she told me around 3 o'clock in the morning. They were on the phone, and my mom, as I'm getting up early in the morning, just give me something to eat. My mom tells me that she believes that my brother's dead. And I said, Mama, what are you feeling? It's not that bad. You know what I'm saying? Don't just say some stuff. But she said, no, I think that your brother's dead. I just feel it. And how moms get a sensation, whether it be moms or dads. get that feeling, and when their child has suddenly passed, um, and he passed, and we going in and walking in a hotel room, and he was dead. He had his head to the right, and had blood coming from his nose and his mouth. I think he had took some medicine. And he said he just didn't want to be here anymore. And from that day on, it really started my introduction into the real world. Because at that point, no matter what had happened, I know I got shot at, just being in the wrong place, wrong time, just the area that I was from. And Making a long story short, he ended up taking his life in a hotel room. And sometimes I think about it, uh, what if my brother was able to receive that good word from a man? Would he still be here? And I believe he would. It was because my brother was talking himself into something that ultimately killed him. It wasn't those pills that killed him. It was my brother's um, voice, and he's
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, I'm going to convince myself that I'm going to kill myself." So he killed
Right.
himself. So
Yeah, man. And you said something really powerful of watching what we're saying, right? And
mm,
I feel language is something that is so important when it comes to, just the mental health community, just the world in general, because, you don't
mm,
know what people are going through, right? And you
right.
said you were 15, right?
I was 50.
And
Yeah, I was. I just turned 15. Just turned
yeah.
15.
So
Mm,
just a little background on myself. I was
okay.
14 when I attempted my first time. And
Jesus.
it's one of those things where when you're feeling suicidal, when you're feeling like, there's no hope, it's you want to be heard, you want to be seen, and
Mm,
I can sympathize with so many people that feel suicidal, and even more so the people that have lost people to suicide, because it's like some people see the signs and some people don't know what those signs are. Sometimes those signs are very obvious, and
mm,
you know um I'm sure it eats you up with that whole thing, but it's unfortunately, as human beings, sometimes you can't control everything. Or well, not sometimes. Most of the time we can't control everything as much as we
we
want to.
can't. No, we can't.
Um what we can do though is how we react to said situations.
It's true.
And you know, now that he is no longer struggling and no longer in pain, and it sucks that he's not here with us, and an awful way to go. But I would rather somebody not being, not feeling pain anymore, not struggling anymore, and uh, opposed to being here and struggling with those thoughts and getting worse and worse. Because
For sure.
imagine if you were older and being able to process that, like you're processing now, and
Mhm,
understand, it could have hit you heavier. You know what I mean? And
mhm.
like I said, you can only control how you react to things, and it's great to see that you advocate so heavy for men and just suicide in general. Because I say it every podcast, man. Suicide is such a taboo subject, and
Mm,
not enough people want to talk about it. So it's always great to see a fellow man being willing to have those conversations, because it's a really hard conversation to have.
mm. For sure, man. I talk about this all the time. Really, you have to really get to know yourself, and really know the trajectory of your mind. A lot of people don't understand that depression can be born with it from hereditary. It can come from a lot of places, or it can come from just your regular struggles on every day. Then what people feel as though they how would I say it? Just the whole what a man needs to do, what he needs to do to feel like a man. It can really drive a man crazy. Just
Yeah.
the whole thing that men are having to do. They have to deal with family. They have to deal with conflict resolution. They're always seen as though they got to lead something, which is a good thing, but it can weigh heavily on a person's mind. And one thing I would tell all people all the time is that, and I would tell guys all the time, I say, when have you felt that you were depressed? And they said, hey, I just start feeling it when this happened, when this happened, when this happened. And I told them, and I said, "Oh, and they tell me they're suicidal." I said, you're suicidal right now. Yeah, I know, I feel it." And then every man has felt that. I think that every man has felt suicide at one point in time in their life. I said, but yours is not to the point that you have that stuff goes down your lineage, hereditary. It's not to a point that it's just in your blood. You're just going through something right now, and I promise you, if you take one foot in front of the other, I guarantee it's gonna work out good for you. Right now, um, what you're dealing with right now has nothing to do with what you're going to be dealing with in the future. There's hope in the future, and I think that if people really put their head down and really kind of understand that right now is just a situation right now. It doesn't mean that it's going to be always. It's just right
Right.
now. And I'll
Right.
tell that to my sons as well. Son, is look, it's right now. It doesn't mean that you're going to be in this situation forever. But there is a lesson that I think that we really have to learn from these type of encounters. What happens? I do believe that situations like this set a course for our destiny. I don't believe that they got some people that struggle, but they got some people that really, really struggle. And when you really, really struggle like that, you have a destiny. It's just like you. When you're 14 years old, you're a kid and that stuff happened. If that stuff didn't happen to you, I wouldn't be talking to you right now.
Right.
I wouldn't have um the ability to even know who you are. You know what I'm saying? And if you would have went through with it, I would have never known you. But it's and I'm a man of faith, you know. You you are here for a reason. The situation that you're going through it went for a reason, and it's bringing out awareness to help brothers like myself and to help brothers like you. And I know that one guy is gonna be looking at it. I know this. Yeah, they're gonna be looking at this and they're gonna be saying, "Well, I'm on my last hand right now. Just if you have to, go sleep. Go get something to eat. Go lay down. I promise you, within a couple hours, you'll feel a certain type of way. You feel different than where you are, and you could probably be mentally exhausted.
Right.
There's a lot of things that play a part in why we feel the way we feel. But
Yeah.
I promise you, if you push forward, it's going to be different.
Yeah. And one of the biggest influences in today's society, social media driving a lot of people's mental health going,
To the
south, right?
roof. Yep.
And I feel, it's great that we have these certain months that, highlight, suicide awareness and suicide prevention and mental health and everything. And I feel when we can have this conversation of, men's mental health matters too,
Hmm.
instead of it just being, delegated to 1 month. Same with, women's mental health month, because I can personally tell you from a content creator's perspective and a mental health advocate, anytime that I have said men's mental health matters too, it's always met with venom. It's always met
Oh,
with, oh, well, women's mental health matters too. And I'm like, bro, I'm not saying
oh
it doesn't.
man.
And it
It's
goes back to what you were saying of, certain men just, we need to go sleep. We need to just go relax and, unplug and shut down for a little bit. And,
mm,
tomorrow might be another day. And
mm,
we're not encouraged enough to speak about those things that are going wrong in our life. And when
mm.
we do, it's met with what I was just saying. Oh, well,
It's just
men don't go through this, men don't go through that. And it's like, bro, we go through a lot. We have to be strong for so many people
Oh
like
man.
yourself. You're a father, you're a
Mhm,
provider for those
mhm.
kids. And
Yes.
that's a lot. Like just that in general is a lot.
Mhm,
You do
mhm,
it because you love them. You do it because you want to show them what strong can look like.
mhm,
And being strong is a great thing. And the social norm of men having to be leaders, men having to be providers, and this, and this. We have so many expectations put
mhm,
on us as men,
mm.
and the parenting aspect of it alone. There's a lot of expectations there. I
There
can't even
is.
begin to imagine what those expectations look beyond a stable relationship with
Mhm,
said mother of the kids.
mhm.
So diving into that now, um, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the custody courts of
We're really getting into it, huh?
oh yeah, we're gonna go head first,
Okay,
man.
alright.
Um, so let's talk about the custody courts. You had mentioned that they play a significant role in misplacing children and fathers. So if you want to speak to that, just either from your experience, or if you want to just create awareness around that with what you can say. Um, let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Okay. So I can't say much because I'm
Right.
currently in the custody battle myself. And that's not in my best interest to do. However, I understand what that is. I understand what parental alienation is. Some people don't understand. But I also understand what bias within the court system is. And um, you will be surprised if you have a man judge versus a ladies judge. Their whole perspective on what a father is, who should have the rights of a father, of the children. And it's so complex because first of all, parental alienation is it's a manipulation with one parent. um Typically alters the mind of a child by manipulating them, basically by spewing off bad information to them. And so the alienated child, what we would call the alienated child, which is they have the alienated child and they have the targeted parent. And the alienated child typically hates the targeted parent for no reason. And that is one telltale sign that you can really see that you're dealing with a child from parental alienation. I was looking at some. I was doing research on YouTube, and they have the past, the present, and the future. One of the psychologists had kind of talked and really hit me from it. And you have past, present, and future, and the past and the present typically goes hand in hand. And
Right.
they would hold a picture up to the child, and they were like, "Hey, is dad? I see that you had a. Have you ever had fun with dad?" And the child would say, "No, I never had fun with dad." Okay, well, here goes a picture. Did you ever have fun with dad now? You guys are smiling and laughing, and then it'll be like, no, I ain't never had fun with dad. That's one of the telltale signs that that child is alienated. Furthermore, like I said, it's past, present, and future. In the future, they would just ask the child, "Hey, what do you? How can dad make this right? Specifically, how can dad make this right?" And the child says, "Well, they can never make it right. No, I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want this." And that is right there is parental alienation for sure, because ultimately the child's mind has been altered to believe that the father. And let me highlight this, and it's mostly it's men that's going through this. Now they have some cases where women go through this too, so I'm not gonna knock the ladies that are actually going through this. However, the vast majority is women, I mean men, that are actually going through this. And so when you actually get into the courtroom, it's so crazy because what they first do is it's a thing called a civil bullet tactic, and it goes hand in hand with parental alienation. It's civil bullet tactic. I can paraphrase. I give you the best paraphrase I can. It's where someone makes a false allegation against the other without probable cause. Like you don't have any evidence or anything like that, but they can make a false allegation where maybe a biased person, like a lawyer or a judge, could take this information and say, you know what, that confirm is what we call confirmation bias, is where they confirm what they believe already there. And ultimately, you can present as much evidence as you want, but if their mind is already made up, their mind is already made up. And so that's where the biasism within the courts come from. And I think that a lot of times where you can have an implicit bias or explicit bias. Implicitly is where you're just conditioned to believe that a male is wrong, no
Right.
matter what. You don't have any education on it. You just know that that's what's supposed to happen. And explicitly is when you have a narrative that you want to push, where yeah, I understand that this dad is right. He presented the great evidence. It clearly shows that he's innocent, but I'm gonna give it to the mom anyways because it's just the right thing to do because I like it. It's my narrative, right? And what that does is it crushes the father and the child's relationship. And I think that, and studies have already shown that keeping the father away from the child's more likely to go to prison. um, they're more likely, if it's a lady, they're more likely to getting pregnant at a younger age. Um, they're less likely to, even finish college, little things like that, because fathers bring discipline and
Right.
correction, and that's something that's so pivotal to the development of who we are and our character and our morals. So that's what really happens. I always say this: men are not leaving their children; they're being forced out, and they're being forced out silently. It's very, very silently. And I think that we've done a grave injustice as men, um, that we, number one, we don't educate ourselves in this situation, and number two, um, we don't bring awareness to the situation. And so, some people bring awareness, but we don't support it because
Right.
typically ourselves haven't went through it.
Right. Um, so for me, I can speak to my own experience. Like I was telling you before, my
Mm,
parents divorced at a very young age, and my parents played tug of war with us probably almost my entire life up to my sister was like 18. And like I was telling you before we were recording, the silver bullet tactics. I've never heard that phrase before.
mm, mm,
And when I read the definition of the false allegations of abuse,
for
um,
sure.
my mom did that to my dad and
Wow.
would tell my
Wow.
sister that my dad used to beat her and do all these
Mm,
things. And she tried that on me and my brother for the
mm,
longest time.
mhm,
And, I feel it's great that we have you as having a father's perspective. And I also feel it's
mhm,
important to speak from, the kid that you know, went through this.
mhm.
Everything that we wanted to cover on here I have been through. The
Wow.
parental alienation thing is
Mm,
something that I feel is super important to talk about because my sister and my dad don't have a relationship at all, and that's because of my mom. um she basically brainwashed my sister into believing that my dad never gave a shit about her, that money was always a factor between my mom and my dad. And speaking through the custody part, my dad was paying
mhm.
child support when we were living with him.
Wow.
And you
Wow.
know Florida
Wow.
is really bad when it comes to child custody. And I always used to ask
Wow.
my dad, I'm like, why are you still paying child support if we're living with you? Why are you still giving her money? And he explained to me, like, Florida is a really heavy mom state. The mother,
Yes. Yes.
regardless of
Yes.
what
Yes.
happens, it's
Mhm.
the mother is always in the right, no matter
Right.
what. And one of I think it's important to bring up her case just for the simple fact that nothing happened to her. Casey Anthony. Everybody
Mm,
remembers Casey Anthony.
mm,
Nothing happened to her.
mm,
And the whole case got thrown out the window and
mhm,
nobody batted an eye. Now,
mhm,
let's reverse the roles for a second here.
mhm,
And there would be no throwing out the case. There would be
mhm.
no, there's tampered evidence, nothing. The father, 9 times out of 10, would probably go to prison. They would find something on
Oh,
him.
for sure, for
Yeah,
sure, for sure. Well, that's what they say, man. We got to make an example out of this man.
right.
And you got so many men that are filled with prison.
Yeah,
I've seen so many of my friends that I grew up with are in prison. They either shot, they either killed, murdered, they shot and killed people, and that was just the environment I was in. Um, uh, but I made a better decision to not put myself in that situation. But you have to. I think that people don't understand that this is where I say about bias. With I say about biased court systems. Unfortunately, you know, a judge can help lives, or a judge can ruin lives. I've known good judges. I've known bad judges, and and even with me, going coming into the first day I started fighting for my child. It was I can remember like yesterday. It was in 2018. Of course, I'm not giving anything about the custody thing, but it was in 2018, and I remember I was in college. I had just went back to college not too long ago, and I was in my final semester of trying to get my college my degree from the University of North Texas, which I got a BA in history. So I like to look at uh, how things develop, right? And I remember I think after I paid my lawyer, I only had $20 to my name. Now, this $20 was supposed to hold me for 3 days. Now, I spent 3 days there. I didn't have a hotel, didn't have nothing, right? So I go there. I say, you know what? Somebody helped me with the money, which was a good friend of the family's. They helped me with the money just to get my case started. And they helped me. And they said, hey, man, this is all I got. My mom said, hey, this is all I got. I said, you know what, mom, I appreciate it. I can make something stretch. I get off the airplane, hungry as I don't know what. I go to Newport News Airport, and I arrive there, and of course, I have $20 in my name. Uber ride to my lawyer's was about 10, maybe 11, $12 some change.
Oh,
And then I also we had such a good conversation. The Uber driver said, hey man, leave me a tip. I said, all right, leave me a tip. So at this point, I only have $5 to my name. Now this is the to get back and forth to places, and this is also to eat. So um you can tell that a candy bar costs $5, right?
right.
Well, make a long story short, I paid the my lawyer, and then he tell me what he's gonna do. Came up with a plan of action, and then I say, okay, I'm about to go. They look at me, the paralegal, and my lawyer looks at me, and he says, Chad, what are you doing? He says, where you gonna put your backpack? I said, I don't know, but I gotta get to the courthouse. He said, son, the courthouse is 5 miles, 6 miles down the way. I said, well, hell, I got 3 hours. I better start walking. So they look at me and they're like, no, 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 we'll take you. Hold on, we'll get somebody to take you. And so I'm shocked because I am from Texas, but some people are not that nice, right? So my lawyer paralegal takes me, and I get there, and I immediately have like a couple quarters to put my bag and stuff in and stuff like that, and then I go there, and then I get a verdict, and the verdict is um that ultimately is true. Well, it's not true, but it's allegations, and my lawyer wasn't there in court that day, and they were able to get a good guilty verdict on me, and that started my whole fight. And for 1 year, I wasn't able to see my children for 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. And I tell people this all the time, and I think that my life could be made as a storybook, like even a film, to highlight what happens when a father is fighting for his kids. Because I'm on a double-edged sword. I'm paying child support, and I'm fighting my kid, which costs from $3,000 to $40,000 average.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
average. I always tell I'm above 20,000. I can tell you
Yeah.
that right now. I'm above twenty
Oh,
thousand, and the years that it takes out of your life.
right.
You're so used to fighting that once you stop fighting, you're just man, this doesn't even
Numb.
feel right. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
numb. So the average is 30 days to 7 years for parental alienation. Well, for custody battles. And
Jeez.
that's the reason why. So now men are having to pay child support, and they're having to pay to clothe and take their kid, and then they have to pay on the other end the attorney fees that you need to pay it.
Right.
You have to pay it, and they're just paying too much. They can't afford to even live. They can't even afford to even pay for their basic needs.
Right.
And because they're in a fight. So
And I think it's I'm not against child support at all. I
right.
understand
Hmm.
I understand the concept of it, right? And there
Hmm.
are a lot of situations where, yeah, I agree that said party should pay child support, right? But
Right.
I also feel that there are a lot of people, on both sides of the fence that abuse that child support. And
Yes. Yes.
speaking to, my experience as well. My dad paid child support one time to my mom, and instead of using it, for us,
Hmm.
she had Oh wait, no, it wasn't child support. It was income tax when she claimed us. Instead of
Oh
using it
wow.
for us at all, she bought a truck for her at the time boyfriend.
Oh, classic. That's classic,
And
man. That's classic,
and
dude.
it's crazy to me how none of this is regulated.
Hmm.
I feel like if there's like child support and being paid, like I think it should go into, like an
That's fine.
account or something to make sure it's going to the kids.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
again, Florida being the way that it is with the court systems and custody and stuff, man, it's God. And you said you're about 20,000. You said about
Yeah, yeah, even more than that. I gotta tally up the thing, but think about it. I've been fighting since 2018,
yeah,
and I've been fighting there. My lawyer is not cheap, which I appreciate him,
right,
man. I mean, I love my lawyer. I got a great lawyer. I really do. Just a lawyer that's his morals are up there with the greats. You know what I'm saying? And he really looked out for me. He really looked out for me. So I don't mind paying that man whatever he needs to be paid to do what he needs to do because he knows exactly what he does. He's a 40 years experienced lawyers. He even told me, he said, man, Chad, he said, this is by far the worst out of my 40 years of fighting. He said, this is by far the worst alienation, parental alienation I've ever seen before in my life. And we laugh about it. We laugh about it all the time because now I guess we get so numb to it. But you also got to understand. And he kind of explained to me. He says, and I looked it up and stuff. I did a lot of research on the system, and people don't understand that there is joint custody, and there's joint physical custody, and there's sole custody. Typically, whenever they have sole custody, a mother has sole custody, which, if you look at statistics, a lot of women have more sole custody than they do joint physical custody.
right,
So they got sole custody, and they got joint physical custody. And sole custody is where not only do the mother make the big bucks, but the court system too make the big bucks. And so once they hit sole custody, they're able to take more money from the dad. And then with that being said, you limited more time with the father, and that's why this is such a silent killer to
yeah,
families because if you look at all the statistics, then um, it shows that the mother is getting a lot of sole custody, and it's limited the time. It's giving more money that the man has to pay, but it's limited the time that they have interaction between the father and the child, the bonding time. And we all know that when it happens, what happens to them? They become statistics for the love of money. If we look at it right now, the average, I think last year, Child Support Bureau said that they received $60 billion in child support every
Jesus,
year annually, and that's where they get their money is the taxing. That's why, like, whenever the two parents are like, no, 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 I don't want to be put on child support. I don't want my husband to be put on child support, or my significant other. They're like, no, he's going on child support. And the reason why he's going on child support is because the state can tax that and they can receive money from that as well. So
right,
that's where the whole system it interferes with the families.
right. So one question I had, since you're serving in the
Sure.
army and everything,
Mhm.
do they help you at all? Like mental health resources or anything, or like court systems? Like, do they help you at all with that, or is it just kind of like all on you?
Yeah, so here's the thing. So in the United States military, within any military branch, you're accustomed to UCMJ actions, right? That is where the military has its own jurisdiction branch. They have their own laws, set of rules, and stuff like that. And typically, the judge is a colonel. They have boards, they have panels that they meet on. Hey, is he guilty or is he not guilty? That they have to sit on each week for soldiers like myself. I have a soldier right now, and I'm remembering him as we talk. I'm still helping him through his situation, and this is how bad it is. This is where my nonprofit is going to come into action because number one, this is what happened. He was abused, and he was abused twice, right? And twice she went to jail. She went to jail. What was it? She went to jail in Texas, and then she went to jail in North Carolina. And they have documentation of this. Now the kids were living with her at one point in time in Texas, and you know, anybody knows that they still have Texas still has jurisdiction over any state if they are living in that state for 6 months. Well, make a long story short, she filed under Texas, and he had to appear in Texas within less than a week. He was given notice, and they had to appear less than a week, but he can't appear because he has two kids that he is watching and having because the mother went to jail and because of domestic violence. Well, the judge, two things. The judge did not support the Service Member Act. And if you look at the Service Member Act, you have to give the service member a certain amount of days, which is a month, to get their stuff in order to have the kids be watched and stuff like that. And the judge not recognized that in Texas. And so they served him. They said you had to appear within less than a week, and he just didn't understand. And they did not support the Service Member Act, and that's a federal law, but they don't support it in the bottom. Says unless you fight for it, right? Yeah. And make a long story short, they were able to get a temporary custody order where she had sole legal visitation. She has sole custody, and she is able to have the kids, and he has to pay her $1,000 a month for the kids, and he's the one that has them. Now, if you look on the situation with his command does not support him. And I'm almost about 5 seconds away from going to his command and saying,
Right.
"Hey, man, what are you guys doing? This guy's been abused. He's a victim of domestic violence. How can you guys treat that bad?" Well, the male soldiers are ignorant because they lack education on the situation that he's going through, and he is also they also don't understand what parental alienation is. They don't have kids themselves, so they are trying to tell him what he needs to do with his children, and they don't have children themselves. And we all know that if you have a kid, you love that kid with all your heart.
Right.
And to give it to a pack of wolves, to anybody that is going to be bad for them, it does something to you mentally. And that officer did nothing to support that soldier. And and I want to change the narrative, especially in the military, starting in the military and civilian. And I want to push a narrative that men are victims too. Men can go through these things
Right.
too. But because we are hardened in the military a lot of the times, we become bad leadership because we lack empathy. And we're not educated on parental rights. But no matter what in the military, that civilian custody orders trumps the military custody orders. That's the whole thing. So they were able to get him there. So we don't know what's going to happen here pretty soon. He's trying to navigate the whole situation, but he's going to have to probably give the kids up for 11 days. 11 days. Well, until he goes back to court, and that's going to be on January 11th. But she lied about a lot of things, and she was given the benefit out of the doubt. She never took out
Mm.
a cut anything on him, anything, and he's the one that's abused, and he's the one that's. I talked to him. I said that this is what happens whenever you go into custody courts for your children. You are gonna, no matter what, you're gonna be deemed that you are somehow a monster. Uh, uh, and you are incapable, incompetent enough to take care of your children, and that's just not the case. I see single fathers every single day that are coming up. They don't even ask for handouts. They just do what they have to do. And of course, we're men, we have pride,
Right.
but they don't even ask for it. They just do it, and they don't even ask for a pat on the back. We men are very, very strong. And I think that a lot of times, how they did statistically, they say that being in a house with a father alone is equivalent to being in a house with two adults, two parents, a male and a female. So I think that things are starting to change as we start to push the narrative and push understanding and education. But it's changing pretty slowly. And I think that with our nonprofit organization, Man with the Long Road, when I get it up, we're gonna get the website and stuff up and going here soon. It's gonna be a fraternity of men. that are we're gonna fight and we're gonna hold people in places accountable for how they treat dads, fathers, and the children. And it needs to happen because
Yeah.
we are dying by suicide and we are dying by just dying inside. We can't kill ourselves a lot of times, but sometimes we can't kill ourselves because we know that, we may be religious or whatever, so we're here to suffer. And, one time my mom had said, this will be the last thing I'll say before I let you go. Um, you know, my mom told me, she says, Chad, I said, yeah, what's up, mom? And she understood the situation. She says, baby, listen, I lost two boys. I said, yeah, I know, mom, and she says, but you got it worse. And I said, I just don't understand what you mean, mom. What are you trying to refer to? I kind of got offensive. I was like, no, mom, no, you lost two boys. She said, yeah, but baby, I think you got a little bit worse than mama. She said, you lost two girls and they're alive. They're kicking, screaming, and they're
Yes.
smiling, and it's unjustifiably. And she said, you lost them and you're still fighting. And he said, you can imagine what they're doing right now. You can't even be in lives of children. And it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And then that really put it in perspective that I need to fight. I need to fight for my children. And I've been fighting ever since, and it's getting better. It's getting better.
Yeah. And I think that's the most important part is that it's slowly getting better. I feel
Hmm.
the fight is the most important part. And just a couple things I wanted to touch on.
Hmm.
Number one being the biggest thing I wanted to bring up is I feel on this whole journey of, the whole equality conversation. Everybody loves that
Oh,
conversation.
oh,
We have fought so long to, have everybody on this level, right? Men and women
yeah.
at the same level, financially, spiritually, emotionally, whatever. In that journey of trying to create equality, we
Hmm.
have quite literally buried men. And,
Yes.
women are encouraged to speak out. Women are encouraged to leave their relationships. We're encouraged to leave relationships. And another thing, I feel
Mm,
today's society, for some reason, is trying to normalize, is not having a nuclear family being a normal thing.
for
And
sure.
this whole broken home mentality
Hmm.
is so normalized that
Hmm.
we're not seeing the damage that it's doing to the kids because, like you said, the biased courts.
Hmm.
And which brings me to I don't know if you've ever heard Chris Rock talk about his custody situation. So
Yeah, I'm familiar with
he
that.
was basically saying how a judge was telling him that he needed to provide proof that the kids are going to have a bed, a full refrigerator, how a stable house that they can live in. This man is a millionaire and still having to prove all
Mhm.
those things are going to be there for his kids is maddening to me.
It's madness. And this is what I'm saying. This is why I tell people, and this is just exhibit A, right? You have a guy that is financially stable, well beyond his means, um, and he is without a benefit out questioned. He's questioned by his sanity. If he's not questioned by his sanity, he's questioned the ability to provide. Or are you emotionally intelligent to love these kids? You have empathy. And this just shows you right there. He also said dogs, what do you say?
Dogs and women are
Children's
loved unconditionally.
unconditionally, and but a man is loved by how he can provide, what he can
Yes,
provide. And that is sad. And that is sad.
100%.
And it is the reason why every time I look at my brother, I'm like, okay, I understand now. I didn't understand before, but I understand now. If you look at everything that are happening, sometimes people are given jobs and careers because of they want to push this narrative, and I know for sure within the military it's really hit us really really hard. I'm not going to say anything. I'll just keep my mouth shut on that
Right.
situation. So but I do recognize that it's true. And they are saying that men should shut their voices and women should elevate their voices. If you look at the situation, I told people before, I'm big. I'm a Trump supporter. I support Trump and his ability to run the nation. I believe that he is better for us when it comes to running the nation. I say that because he has no holds bar. If you look at everything that had happened before, they don't like him not because he's Trump and his executive decisions. They don't like him because of his ability to actually talk and speak. They call him arrogant. But if you look at these, our ladies within the Black community, within our community, within the African American community, and they're showing their backside and and stuff like that, and then they praise them and they call it independent, or it makes them feel empowered somehow, um by showing your backside. You don't have to do that, baby. You don't have to do that. I know a lot of women that I have respect for, that I will protect. They don't even have, they could be married, I'll still protect them because the way they carry themselves. Just to say, hey, that's a woman in our presence. That's what we want. But I think that men are becoming, that are not encouraged to be masculine at the expense of trying to make our ladies feel accepted. And sometimes I'm gonna be real with you, man. Sometimes, I mean, a lot of times our ladies are designed for certain things. Men are designed for certain things, and we can't give everybody the acceptance um, at the expense of a situation that's going to make it worse for everybody. So
Right.
I feel as though, um, uh, we're I don't believe in the equality thing. We're not all equal. We're not.
Right.
Men can't have babies. You know, women can't get another woman pregnant. It's just not logical. And they typically want to shut men up. They want to
Right.
push narrative. And if you look at the stuff that's happening within, um, uh, allegations, it's a civil bully tactic, but it's on a larger scale.
It's
They push
so bad.
allegations. Oh my God, it's politicians, rich people. If you're a rich person and you just have sex one time, you know, you're more likely to get a lawsuit. People can come back 20 years. You know, it's bad. It's bad. It's really, really bad. Even if I knew that
I don't
person, don't mean we have
remember
to have it.
I don't remember who it was. I believe he was a football player,
Hmm.
um, that recently got out of an allegation suit.
Hmm.
Um, this woman was basically saying that, he had drugged her and, assaulted her while she was, drugged up and stuff. And I guess like text messages leaked to from her and her best friend saying that she had this whole elaborate plan.
Oh
You know what
yeah,
I'm talking
yeah.
about?
I think is that the punter? Is he was
I
college?
think so. I think
Okay,
so.
so he was a college. Yeah, he was a college guy. I played football myself, and I was an ex-football player in college and stuff. And a lot of the guy, it wasn't bad back then.
Right.
Ladies throw stuff at you, but what's happening with social media is, it is taught to them through the screen
Right.
that this happened to somebody. Now someone says, okay, well, I can do the same exact thing, and it just creates a domino effect.
Right.
um Also, if you look at the Salem witch trials, it's a you can go back and reference that. Salem witch trials that happened here in the colonies in the 15th century. And those were, women that were accused of being witches, and they didn't want to go down themselves, so they brought another person with them, and another person with them, and another person, and just spread like wildfire.
Right.
I think that what's happening now is people are afraid to stand on what's happening, or they're afraid to call it out because they themselves will be a target. And
Right.
I believe that when we come in together as men and say this stuff has got to stop, that's when the political correctness, there's a political correctness that's ruining our
Oh
land.
yeah. Oh
It's a
yeah.
political correctness that's ruining. I mean, it's like it's an unforeseen foe,
Right.
that is just it's just wiping everything out. And what it's doing is undermining people's authority,
Right.
and it's making government officials corrupt, and it's ultimately, and it's making them corrupt by, um pushing false allegations. People are playing the false allegation. I want to be. Everybody wants to be the good person.
Right,
Nobody wants to be a person that can stand up and say, "Look, man, like we do in the military. Look, man, this is
right.
not what's going to happen. All right, you may not like it this way, but this has to get done ultimately." And that's the reason why our military is so good. Ultimately, it has to get done. Who's going to do it? Well, come
Right.
on, let's go. We got to get it. We got to get it done.
Yeah, and I feel of course there are allegations that are true. I'm never going to say
Oh
that
yeah, yeah, for sure,
uh
for sure.
I'm never going to say that it never happened. But
Hmm.
as a society, for some odd reason, we have become a society of guilty until proven innocent, not
Yes,
innocent until proven guilty like it used to be.
yes,
Um,
yes.
do I think there are scumbags that are in the NFL, NBA, NHL? Absolutely.
Of
Same
course,
with,
the
like
people.
you said, government officials,
Mhm.
presidents, governors, whatever. There are evil people in every stage of life, no matter what their social status is.
Mm.
And like you said, I feel social media has made people so comfortable in
Mhm.
trying to ruin people's lives that we're going back 10, 15 years and looking at a tweet somebody posted when they were 13 years old
Oh, for
and
sure, for sure,
canceling them.
for sure, for sure. And yeah, you look at that stuff, and I just think to myself like, we're breeding weak men. We're breeding weak. I'm big on masculinity. Every day I do, I go lift weights, I go shoot, I go do all these things that's gonna make me feel like a man. Not that if something goes down, I know I'm able and I got the confidence enough to protect my family. That's the type of man I am. And I've always
Right,
been like that, and I never let nobody deter me from feeling the way I feel. I'm everything masculine, right? And I think that when men are afraid to show their masculinity, they become weak,
right.
and they create other weak men by saying you can't act like that. That's not politically correct. That's gonna make our ladies feel inferior. Which I'm sorry, but as a man, men protect. That's their job, and it makes a person feel inferior. Then I don't know what to really tell you. That seems like a personal problem to me, you know. But yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. And they will pull up everything. They will
And
pull up everything, and they will ruin people's
what's
lives.
funny about the masculine man
Hmm.
conversation is, so you dive into the dating scene, right? You dive into
Hmm.
social media and the dating scene. The new narrative is a hundred and something bullet list of places that a man should not take a woman on a first date, right? You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
the
And
Cheesecake Factory.
right, yeah, like that being like the number one thing, right? And
Hmm.
I feel that there is a narrative of, women want men who can express themselves. Women want men who can be vulnerable. And
Yeah.
then when it comes to a man being able to show that emotional
Hmm.
intelligence that he possesses, it's
Hmm.
like, oh, he's not. We don't want that. We don't want somebody that can hold a door. We don't want this. We don't want that. And then they go after the people that, and I hate to sound like somebody who's throwing a stereotype out there, but
Huh?
they want people that has a criminal record. They want people
Mm,
that, doesn't live within the confines of what a normal person should be.
for sure, for sure.
And for me, recently I was talking to a woman that I thought was on the same level as me mentally. We shared our
Hmm.
intentions with each other and stuff. And
Hmm.
I allowed her to be vulnerable and, take on whatever she was struggling with, which I think as a man, you should be
Hmm.
able to do.
For sure,
Now,
for sure.
I was vulnerable with her one time, just
Hmm.
kind of sharing a podcast that I was doing with the guest I had before you, and it coincided with my therapy session. Um,
Hmm.
After that therapy, or after I shared that with her, it was met with a dismissive response. She deleted me on all socials and ghosted me. Um,
Oh wow. Okay. Okay.
and as a
Okay.
society, that's where we're at.
Hmm.
We're at a point where social media is guiding these man and woman of what we should be doing in dating, what we shouldn't be in dating, and it changes every single day. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, we can't go here for a first date. I don't know you like that, so why am I going to take you to a five-star
Exactly.
restaurant?
Exactly. No, for sure. They was, and then we call gaslighting, man. They manipulate the situation and then they demonize you for Take them to Starbucks, man, to go get them some coffee, and we have interaction with one-on-one interaction. Hey, man, what do you want? I can buy you something at
Right.
Starbucks. I'm not about to invest everything in you. I'm sorry, love. That's just not going to happen. And then
Right.
they call you broke. And
Right.
that's a part of the gaslighting. They manipulate. Well, if you were and this is the crazy part. Now it gets bad when this happens. Well, if you were a real man, you wouldn't have to worry about real men. Now, this is coming from ladies that never stepped in a man's shoes, that doesn't understand what leadership role entails. They just believe that it's a cool thing to say to get people to do what they want them to do. It's a trending thing. And
Right.
if you're a weak type of man, you're gonna say, oh, you know what, I am real. Let me show you. And it's like, what? Hold on, brother. Like, take a step back and then listen to what she has to say, and then respectfully, dismiss her. I wouldn't say dismiss or rebuke her. I always say rebuke, because it's not just a Bible term, but it's the ability to correct someone. And I would always say, hey, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but this is how I do things. This is my, in a sense, standard operation procedures, SOP. I don't just take you out. Who are you? I don't know
Right.
you. And then I turn around and I'm like, look, I don't know you. That's not what I do. Now, if you wanna, be taken out and wine dine, that's fine. But I'm sorry, that's just not gonna happen with me. And typically when that happens, they're more like, oh, he's like, oh, okay, okay, he's got a backbone. I think when you say criminals, that's been locked up and all this stuff, because it emulates a bad boy. Bad boy to them emulates masculinity. But masculinity doesn't that has nothing to do with being a bad boy. You can be strong, you can mean what you say and say what you mean and still express strong masculinity, when it comes to that type of stuff. But they reference that to masculinity. That's a stigma that,
Right.
oh yeah, he's strong. My man can provide for me, protect me, and all this. No, that love. He's one gunshot away from going being in the grave, and then one handcuff away from going to prison for the rest of his life.
Right.
That's stupidity. But that's how they
So
associate.
to add to that,
Mhm.
do you believe that toxic masculinity is a thing?
It is not. That was a psychology term given to men within prison, and they basically, it was, I'm paraphrasing now, but where psychologists had came together and they wanted to gauge between which one was the bad inmate and which one was good, really is a good inmate, because they wanted to study how they acted, within groups. That term is one of the most misused terms. And the people that did it was actually, I believe they weren't heterosexual males. They were gay males, respectfully. And the mainstream media took that and they ran with it, and they started to push a narrative about men. Well, they say the same thing about women. A lot of men have reportedly saying that this woman has beat the heck out of me, and that manipulates me all the time. But there's no term to stigmatize her. She's just a woman, and that has feelings and all this other stuff. But to men, they're trying to push a narrative. They're trying to get men out of the leadership seat, but it won't happen.
Yeah.
It won't happen, because if I had to come up to you and your lady in a thing in a place where you guys were at, I would look at you as a threat. You got a beard, you look like you hit the little, you hit the weights a little bit, you got your little shoulders up, you got your hat. I'm looking at him, I'm like, that guy probably got a glut on him. No, I'm gonna be real. Look, that man, I'm pretty sure he done been through something in life. He's hardened. No, and
Right.
I don't want any problems with that man. So that woman right there is safe, because if I'm a predator or anything like that, I'm gonna look for the weakest person. Now I'm gonna look for a person that, to me, is a person that don't have confidence in himself. And he's like, oh, when he's letting her, do what she wants to do. That's why she's for easy picking, because no matter what, she may think that she's in
Right.
control. But if I was that type of person, who would you go for? I would go for him, because he's not a threat. He's a threat, but then again, he's
Right.
not a threat. He can't, and then she's gonna understand reality real well
Right.
when I take whatever I want to take from her, throw her down because she can't. ultimately she can't deal with my strength, you know.
Right.
And I think that a lot of ladies need to really understand that.
And it's I'm glad you brought it up um in that response, because every time we think of fathers, what's the one word that they associate fathers with all the time? Toxic, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
But today's
Mm.
society is not ready to have that conversation about toxic mothers. That's a thing, whether people want
Ooh.
to admit it or not. And for my listeners, you guys know my story by now. You know what I've
Mhm,
gone through with my mom, and this is not, of course, all women, nor is it all men of the toxic
mhm,
father side. But what everybody needs to realize is we're not on the same level that we should be.
mhm,
Me personally, I don't think they hear guys like you and I until we're
mhm.
no longer here, man. Like,
Oh, for sure.
look at the Green Ranger that just took his life last year, right?
Yep.
My immediate response was I truly don't think people are going to hear this message that you and I and
Mhm,
other advocates are trying to heavy push into the limelight until we're
mhm.
gone, until we're no longer here.
For sure,
And
for sure.
it sucks that we can't openly say, yeah, toxic mothers are a thing too. Not just, oh
Mhm.
well, it's just a mom that's struggling with her kids. No, that is a toxic mother.
You you know it's crazy. I will tell you a story that this is happening. This happened with my nonprofit. Now we I have a board. We have board members. I'm what we call the leading. Is the leader of the place. And a lot of times, a lot of stuff had to come through me. Of course, it's my nonprofit, but I'm very, respectful of my guys. I love my guys. I have a guy that's a Chinook pilot. He's a Chinook pilot, and he's at Fort Campbell right now. His name is Musa Ritter. I have another guy that's my cousin. His name is Mark Stevens. He's an anesthesiologist. He puts people to sleep. And then I got another brother named Derek Smith. He's my best friend that grew up with me since fifth grade, and he handled finances. He's in the Navy. He's actually in Africa right now in Djibouti. He's working with South operations, not him being in it, but he's supply, so he get to work with those guys. Shout out to all the guys, man, from M Waller. But I was talking to Mark. Mark is the one that handles the advertisement. And Mark spoke to me on many occasions. I was calling him and say, "Hey, how's the marketing thing going? How's everything going? Have you found someone that can help us market yet?" And he goes on and he tells me, he says, "Man, listen, I'm hitting stumbling blocks. I've called 10 people today. And everybody within Clarksville area that we were in when I was in Clarksville, he said every last one of them understood our mission statement and they did not want to help." I said, "Okay, well, what do you mean?" I said, "Did you tell him my mission statement?" He explained the mission statement, he read it out and stuff like that. And he said that I said, "Well, what did they say?" He said, "For every last one of them," he says that they explained that it is kind of sexist and they don't want to deal with it.
Oh my lord.
They don't want to be representation. But we got one guy, his name is Blade, and he's
Right.
gonna do this stuff for us. And this is what I'm saying when it comes to these type of stuff. And we talked to him, we said, "Hey, we want to help men, we want to help men and fathers." They said, "Well, we think that is noble what you're doing, but that can kind of be risky for our business." And so you have the business side of it that has to answer to somebody, or they have to answer that something. People will cancel that business just because they don't want father's rights situation to come out. And I think that is I'm done talking about the things. We're going to push this narrative. We're going to push this true narrative. It's not a narrative because it's true, but we're going to push this, and people are going to be educated on it, and the things, the dynamics of everything is going to change. I think that we can't just conversate anymore. I think that we have to put it black and white and say, this is what's happening within our society. This is what it's affecting. This is how it's affecting. When we get guys that are smart and intelligent and they understand statistics, and they can present those in a conference to the judges, the lawmakers, to all the important people that are making decisions against this guy's lives. They're not giving us resources like they give our ladies resources. And it is sad, brother. It is sad on so many occasions. My friend right now, like I was telling you, he is struggling right now to provide food formula, all these things, and she does not help him with anything. That's a problem. And I think that once this fraternity of men comes up, immoral, a man with wrong road, because it will happen. Because I'm just to the point that I'm tired of talking about it.
Yeah.
We really need a place where men can get resources. They can receive legal help. They can receive help when it comes to mental health, how their brain function. We need people like professional people that can actually help, that volunteers their time. And we need to really push a narrative to say men are in a situation and we care. We want to give you resources. And if we're not going to stop suicide. It's never going to happen.
Right.
Because there are going
Right.
to be men that's going to, no matter what, they're going to put it in their minds. They're going to
Of
like,
course.
at 5 o'clock today or 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to put a gun to my head and I'm going to blow my head off. And that's just going to be what it is. You can't stop a man. That's how powerful men are.
Right.
But I can tell you this. If we can change the course and causing men not to have PTSD from the court systems, we've done a good job. And even social media, we can change the narrative.
Yeah.
We just have to have men volunteer with other men to change that narrative.
Right.
We can't do it one by one person, not by one color or one race. We have to do it all together. Black men, white men, Hispanic men, um, um, Indian men, Native men, all the men of many different colors coming together and fighting for each other. That's what we need.
Right. And I agree that we're not going to prevent all suicides.
Yes.
It's improbable and impossible. But
Hmm.
what we can do is have that conversation and take action.
Yes,
And
sir. Yes, sir.
for me, I we were watching a hockey game on Thursday. We go out every Thursday and have some wings and watch
Mhm.
hockey. And the crisis hotline is being advertised. It's being put
Wow.
on. Yeah. And I was just like, okay, so we're starting to make a dent somewhere. And
Right, right.
we went to, my brother and I went to dinner with my grandparents last night, and I was wearing a shirt that it had a black flag and it had the purple and blue suicide awareness ribbon on it. And the
Wow.
gentleman turns around to me. He's like, "Hey, I love your shirt." So we're making a
Wow.
difference,
Wow. Wow.
and
Wow.
it's a powerful message, and it's a conversation that we need to have every damn day, no matter how much of a broken record you and I could ever come off as. It's
Mhm.
it's something that is backed behind so many facts, so many statistics, and
Yes.
the fact that it's reaching our youth is an even bigger problem because that's getting bad too. There should be no reason that ages 12 to 17, anybody in general, but 12 to 17, the number two killer is suicide. There should be no reason for that. And
It
like I
Go
said,
ahead, go ahead.
man, that message that you and I and so many others are trying to push, man or woman, but men specifically in this conversation,
For
um,
sure, for sure.
needs to be, shouted from the rooftops, thrown in your face like everything else is, and
Mhm.
have so many men that are just silently struggling be able to have conversations like this.
We got men that are more rational thinking too. I think that rational thinking has a place to do it too. Especially when you're rational thinking, you think about a lot of things. You don't just blurt things out just out of nowhere. When you're an emotional person, when you lack emotional intelligence, or your EQ per se, you're more likely to say, I'm suffering, I'm doing all this, I'm doing all that. With men, it's more like, man, I'm suffering, but I'm a man, or I don't want to make anybody else feel uncomfortable, so I'm gonna just push it this way. And I remember my mom had told me, she said that your brother said this, and it really haunted me. And my mom is a big advocate for men, so she's one of the biggest advocates for men. Shout out to mom, um, and daddy. And I talked to them, and she said that my brother said that, mom, get your stuff ready. I'm not gonna be here for long. I'm gonna take my life. And she was like, B, why you always say that? But he was serious, and he says that, mom, sometimes the world be better without me. And I never knew that my mom has, but she said she told my brother, told him not to tell her his little brothers, and until everything actually happened because he knew what he wanted to do. That's why I told people, no matter what happened, I believe that if it's already in your mind, it's been known for a long time. And I
Right.
think that what we can do is creating these nonprofit organizations that let them know, like, okay, this is what happened. This is what constantly happens, right? But there's a way of dealing with it. I think that men need to be mentored. There's not a lot of mentor that are happening because of the crisis within social media, and there's not a lot of platforms where commercials are respecting men's leadership. They're respecting their empowerment. They're not, they don't do that stuff. They don't do that stuff for men. They do it for ladies because it's a money thing, but they don't understand that they're killing men. They're killing the men of their generation based off of money. And we won't see a significant decline in it until a lot of men have already taken their life. And I think that is going to ultimately it's going to be too late. So I think having being able to have that talk about things is going to actually turn the narrative into our side, and then we can create more resources from there.
Absolutely.
But like I said, nobody wants to help us. Even when I tried to do things for the nonprofit, they didn't want to help us. They didn't care about helping. They just care about how it would hurt them and how it would look with them. These are over 10 people that we've called. Now, of course, I'm not going to say the companies. Um, but it was horrible. It was darn right horrible. And I think that we need companies that support men. And if you look at even Gillette, when they talked about I don't know, it was a couple of years back when they made that thing about men,
Hmm.
it's like, what are you trying to do, man?
Right.
What are you trying to push? Because it's a false narrative. And I just think that everybody wants to be that good guy,
Right.
and a good guy is demonizing men,
Right.
and elevating our ladies, but demonizing our own men, and that's conditioned. That's socially conditioned when you have to go through that. You don't understand why you're doing it. You're just doing it.
Right.
You're socially conditioned because it makes you feel good.
Right.
So yeah.
And also the with the Coke campaign when they were pushing that be less white thing, and
Oh man. Oh.
I remember when they did that, and me obviously growing up as a white man, I didn't have to experience what black men and women have had to endure, and I
Right.
sympathize with all
Hmm.
the things that they've had to endure.
Yeah. Yeah. Of
But
course.
to basically do what has been done to them to us, it's like
Mm,
that divide is still being created there.
yes.
And
Yes.
I don't hate anybody of any color. I don't whatever
No.
their creed, religious, sexual, whatever. I don't hate anybody.
Right. Right.
And I think we as a society need to stop this us versus them mentality in
Hmm.
every stage of life, whether it's
Hmm.
sexual beliefs, whether it's religious beliefs, whether it's race. There needs to stop that us versus them thing, because
For sure.
like you were just saying, you're killing men and you're killing people that are struggling with this in general.
For
And
sure.
then, like, imagine a little 12-year-old kid who has, a mental disorder, and they're a white kid,
Hmm.
and they read that can be less white. Okay, I
Hmm.
already don't want to be here, and I have a brand that I love, drinking or whatever, and
Hmm.
be less white. What does it say to a kid? You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, yeah. It's the same thing how that was pushed during the civil rights times. I mean,
Right,
you do redlining when blacks couldn't even get to another neighborhood. You're pushing that same narrative or that same thing. Now you think that you're doing something good, but you're not.
right.
I think that what needs to happen is education. That's the only thing that needs to happen, and
Yeah,
awareness. That's it. I think that uh especially I talk to some of the guys, some of my guys, and I work with predominantly white guys. I'm a black man, but I work with predominantly white guy. I don't forget where I come from. I'm from the hood, man. I got it is what it is. I'm from an area that you see bad stuff, right? And some of my white brothers that my counterparts I always call my brothers because they are my brothers, no matter what, you know. They may have come from a different experience and they may not understand where I come from, but I try to create empathy with them. And I talk to them all the time. I say, I talk to them and I say, man, look, dude, you're mad, bro. I know there are a lot of things that are hitting you guys. And to be honest, which is hard as hell trying to be a white man, trying to convince others that, that you matter, or just even give an opinion, you're gonna be called a racist. You're gonna be called a sexist and misogynist. It's gonna be a whole bunch of things that's gonna be pushed against you. But I do believe this. I do believe that this nonprofit that I'm gonna start is gonna paint a picture for all races of men to actually talk and express themselves. And because a white man expresses himself, does not mean that he's racist.
Right.
That is a false narrative that a lot of people are actually pushing,
Right.
that he's racist because I think differently than you. That just means that I'm culturally differently than you. It
Right.
doesn't mean that I'm biased or I hate you. It just means that I'm differently than you. And when people are different and they express a different opinion of us, we automatically go in defense mode. It's almost like a trigger that makes us say, you know what, man, you ain't nothing. You ain't nothing because
Right.
you don't accept what I accept. I say, hey, I respect you, man. I agree to disagree. Let's agree to disagree. And I tell them straight out,
And that's
look,
how it should be.
that's how it should be. That's how it should be, because just because you're white doesn't mean that you hate me. You invited me, you gave me the ability to come on your platform, and I'm a black man. What is that telling you?
Right.
That
And
that's killing the narrative right there.
right. And
Because what we
it's so
what we're
hard to
faced, yeah.
survive in today's society now, man.
Mhm.
It's brutal.
It is. It definitely is, man. But I know that guys like you are making it worthwhile. I know that, and I appreciate you for actually having me on your podcast, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure, man.
so before we wrap up today's podcast,
Mhm.
where can our listeners find you on socials?
It's just social, man. Chad Perseverance. Just yeah, it's just Chad Perseverance. You can find me on Facebook. I don't really push out a lot of my Instagram, but once I do get the website up and going, you guys can really hit me on there, because that's where I'm gonna do a lot of my damage. For as far as quotes, I do a lot of quotes that can actually help men, and they can actually use those quotes and stuff like that. I'm actually gonna in the process of writing a book right now. My
Nice.
situation with struggles and stuff like that, especially in the court systems, and how I had to endure it and stuff like that. So it's going to actually help a lot of people. I know that you ended with a quote. I
Yeah.
know willingly you ended with a quote, and I have one myself. So I'll definitely say mine after yours. I can definitely tell you that.
You can go ahead and be my guest and read yours first.
All right, man. So my quote often comes at 3 o'clock in the morning. I often tell people this all the time, that I believe that it's the spirit of God, and it's just me. And I believe there really is a spirit of God. And I think as you listen to it, you kind of understand it. So it says this at 3 o'clock in the morning. This quote: "What is sacrifice, Chad? It is to take what we love the most and willingly lose it for something greater, even if we ourselves don't benefit from it. For if you lose your most precious item, you are then changed and never the same. Let your sacrifices be so horrific that you've earned a seat at the table of greatness, surrounded by those who have since passed, that were great just as you are now. You will be told secrets of their battles, but since you all have suffered, not one will speak of the suffering, but of the triumphs." And that was at 3 o'clock in the morning.
I love that. It's powerful. Very powerful. Um,
Mhm.
after we end this, can you send that quote over to me? That way
I surely can.
I'll post it on Instagram whenever this podcast gets posted.
I surely can.
Um, so I found a quote. It's from a Miss Ann Landers, and it reads, "It's not what you do for your children, but what you have taught them to do for themselves that will make them successful human beings."
Wow. Love it, brother.
Very simple, and it hits just as hard.
For sure,
And
brother.
I feel when you overcomplicate, your message to people, sometimes
Hmm.
it's so easy to sweep it under the rug, right? It's so
For
easy
sure.
to lose track of what you're trying to push to other people. So,
Hmm.
with that being said, man, I just want to say thank you again for your service. Thank you for being on today's podcast. You were a great guest.
Hey man, I appreciate you for having me, give me the support, man. I appreciate you for your continuously supporting the United States military and even our police officers out there. Just to anybody that's struggling, I just want to give you a final message. Um, Everything is gonna be okay. You may find yourself in a position that that may be the odds may be against you, but remember this, man. Rome was never built in a day, and you have to know that God is on your side, and you have to take a step. Remy says this: as you walk, the way appears. A lot of times, you're not going to understand the things that you're going to go through. You're not even going to know if you're going to turn right to left, but you have to understand that it's for a purpose. You have to understand that it's for a purpose, and the more that you walk, the more you understand. So, if you are feeling like you're dealing with suicide, calm down. Lay down, um, eat something, rest. I guarantee you, your situation that you're going through right now will seem this small once you do those things. Okay, everything's gonna be all right. It's gonna work itself out. You just got to give it time. Thanks, man. I appreciate it, Chris. Thanks, man.
Couldn't agree with that message more, man. And for all our listeners as well, if you're feeling yourself in a crisis situation, of course, dial the 988 crisis hotline, or you can text home to 741-741. You'll reach a counselor there that can help you with your situation as well. So, just to echo Chad's message, you are never alone, and we are here for you to support you no matter what. I look forward to your nonprofit being started and it being shouted out there, because I'll definitely help you spread that message, man. And
Oh, for sure, man.
for all my listeners, thank you again for your constant support, your feedback, and as always, be well and be gentle with yourselves. Till next time, guys, take care. Much love.
Peace.